Like and subscribe right now, or you're gonna have terrible luck for the next week. Amusement parks are the go-to places for thrill seekers around the world. Most of the time, they get just that. But things can go south real quick. Though quite rare, amusement parks have seen their fair share of mishaps over the years. And these accidents haven't just left the victims with a jaded view of these fun places. Some have ended up with severe injuries. In today's video, we'll be looking at 10 of these unfortunate events that turn the happy places into sad ones. Number 10. M&D'S Scotland theme park, Motherwell, Scotland. M&D'S theme park prided itself as having Scotland's only inverted roller coaster. It was nicknamed the Tsunami, and thrill lovers rode under the track instead of the top. But as of today, the ride is scrapped from the park's attraction list following an incident in mid-2016. 5 gondolas derailed at a bend and plunged directly into the ground below. About 9 people were enjoying the ride, with a majority of them being kids. Fortunately, no one was killed in the incident, but it left several people with injuries. 9 people had to be hospitalized after the incident, with 2 cases being the most notable. One was an 11-year-old boy who had sustained grievous injuries on his hands and legs. The other was a 12-year-old boy with leg, chest, and abdominal injuries. The incident had a major effect on the park, prompting the owners to halt all outdoor rides for about a month. Of course, activity picked up after this period, but the Tsunami ride was never reopened, subsequently being dismantled early the following year. In 2019, the park was fined £65,000 after the owners pleaded guilty to flaunting health and safety guidelines. That was after an investigation found that the welding and axle metals on the doomed Tsunami were incompatible. Number 9. Six Flags Great Adventure and Safari, New Jersey, United States. The tragedy at Six Flags Great Adventure and Safari is a bit unique since it didn't involve a roller coaster, but it was a horrific one anyway. On May 11, 1984, the park's haunted castle burst into flames and, in essence, gave the visitors a dosage of real horror. The general structure of the building made matters worse. According to a New York Times account of the incident, the castle was devoid of fire safety measures like sprinklers and smoke alarms. And to top it all off, the inside was a narrow maze of aluminum trailers that were barely lit. So when the building went ablaze, getting out was a major problem. A few survivors recount being confused at the time the fire was breaking out about whether or not the smoke was part of the act. While some got out, others weren't so lucky. Despite firefighters being called on the scene immediately, the fire had engulfed much of the building due to, according to the police, strong winds that were blowing through the castle. After several hours of battle, the fire was brought under control and the full extent of its damage was revealed. 8 people, 7 boys and a girl, had burned beyond recognition. Number 8. Gulliver's World, Warrington, England. Salma Salim met her death in July 2002 in Gulliver's World theme park. The then 15-year-old, who had Down syndrome, suffered the fate after falling about 6 meters from the Ferris wheel. According to charges against the park, Salma had wanted to ride with her mom, but an attendant refused to grant her wish on the basis that she was too big. The mom couldn't put up a good enough protest since her English wasn't as fluent. Of course, the charges were pressed against the park, but not in relation to Salma's death since her lap bar was still securely locked after the incident. The prosecutor acknowledged that indeed the death wasn't as a result of the Gulliver's World flaunting health and safety directives. But a closer look at the facility uncovered a host of other issues that could have very well led to such an incident in the future. Number 7. Dreamland, Queensland, Australia. The Dreamland theme park offered a different kind of ride to its visitors. The Thunder River Rapids, designed to mimic natural rapids. But when tragedy struck in 2016, the park decided to let go of the whole idea of rafting. 4 people that were about 5 seconds away from finishing their ride lost their lives when the raft hit another occupied carrier and was immediately flipped by the conveyor. Some of the passengers were trapped by the carriage while the others were flung from the vessel. There were about 6 passengers on the raft during the incident, 4 adults and 2 kids. The kids were lucky enough to wriggle free of the trap and hence survived the incident. Following the accident, Dreamland was closed off for several months pending investigation and opened again on December 10th the same year. But the rapids were closed forever out of respect for the 4 passengers who perished. Number 6. Battersea Park, London, UK. In 1951, Battersea Park hit a jackpot when it opened the Big Dipper. It was a wooden roller coaster that was a major fascination at the park's fun fair. For close to 2 decades, it brought in enough people to keep the fair running. But a moment of reckoning came in 1972 when a car that was being hoisted broke loose and started rolling back towards the station. Efforts to stop it proved futile as the rollback brake failed for some reason. The back carriage derailed and came crashing through a barrier, followed by the other 2 right on top of it. This spelled doom not just to the passengers on the carriage during the mishap, but also to the fun fair. When the crashing was over, 5 children were dead and more than 10 others were injured. The Big Dipper, despite its past glory, was dismantled, and with it went the fun fair's popularity. For the next 2 years, it staggered on before finally being shut down. The park did well in erasing its dark incident from its history because there's hardly anything that can be associated with the fun fair. Number 5. Six Flags Over Georgia, United States. Anyone would tell you that meeting a body hurtling forward at 80 kilometers an hour is not the best of ideas. LeSean Ferguson, a 17-year-old, found this out the hard way in 2008 at the Six Flags Over Georgia amusement park. He had just been on the Batman the Ride roller coaster, probably one of the best moments of his life, but it turned out to be the last. For some reason, the teenager who visited the park in the company of his church's youth group scaled 2 fences and ventured into a restricted area. It's not clear why he decided to do so, since there are 2 different reasons given. A police spokesperson claimed the boy was trying to take a shortcut into the park, while eyewitnesses insist that he had gone to retrieve his hat that had been supposedly flung off during the ride. But the bottom line is he found himself inside a ride's path and immediately regretted it. He was decapitated by the oncoming car. Number 4. Expoland, Osaka, Japan. The now closed Expoland amusement park was all the rave for more than 30 years. It had a lot going for it, with 8 roller coasters and a host of other attractions. But a freak accident on May 5, 2007 severely dimmed the park's fortunes. One of the cars derailed and, in doing so, killed a 19-year-old university student and injured 19 others. A look into the incident revealed that it was caused by a broken axle. Apparently, all the axles on the derailed car hadn't been replaced for the last 15 years. The park was closed down for the next few months after the accident, and again in December the same year for a lack of customers. The allure was lost with barely enough people turning up at the park. In 2009, the owners abandoned plans to revive the park. Number 3. Galaxyland, Alberta, Canada. The Galaxyland amusement park inside West Edmonton Mall has one thing to beat them all: the Mindbender looping roller coaster. At a height of 44 meters, it's the tallest indoor roller coaster on the planet. But it got off to a rocky start. In 1986, barely a year after construction, one of the cars derailed just as it was heading for the 3rd and final loop. It went into a back and forth movement along the tracks, consequently leading the lap bar restraints to unlock. With nothing to hold them in place, the 4 passengers on the car were thrown smack into the concrete floor below. 3 of them died, while the 4th was left with serious injuries. The car itself continued to the final loop but rolled back before crashing into a concrete pillar and stopping. The roller coaster was closed for the rest of the year, during which it underwent major overhauls. The capacity of the trains was reduced from 16 to 12, seatbelts and shoulder headrests were included, and anti-rollback mechanisms were installed.
Now it's time for today's best pick.
Today's photo was sent in by a subscriber, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2. Six Flags New England, Massachusetts, United States. Falling out of a roller coaster is pretty much guaranteed to end fatally, and that's what happened to a 55-year-old man in May 2004. The man, Stanley Mordosky, met his death at Six Flags New England amusement park just as the Superman Ride of Steel roller coaster was approaching its end. According to an onlooker, the man came out spinning and hit the rail before finally plunging into the ground. Of course, the park paramedics responded to the incident immediately and took the victim to the Baystar Medical Center in Springfield for further medical attention. But the extent of the injuries was too much, as the man later succumbed. Interestingly, the roller coaster had been inspected and given the green light to operate just a day before the incident. But maybe that's why they're called accidents. They'll still occur even when you think you have everything dialed in. An earlier incident on the same roller coaster took place in August 2001. Though no one died, more than 20 people sustained minor injuries when one of the cars hit another.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it, it really works.
Number 1. Kentucky Kingdom, United States. Formerly known as Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom, the Kentucky Kingdom was known for its Superman Tower of Power. It lifted riders about 54 meters up before letting them down at a speed of 87 kilometers an hour. But an incident in 2007 made the park rethink the need for keeping the tower that had been in operation since 1995. A 13-year-old girl came close to being decapitated when a cable on the tower snapped during ascent. People on the ride shouted for the ride to be stopped, but that didn't happen for some reason. While the ascent had no major injuries, the teenage girl had her head nearly ripped off by the errant cable, but she managed to rid her neck of it. But it wasn't done with her. During the descent, it snapped tight around her feet. She couldn't wriggle out of the grip this time around and had to endure one of the freakiest theme park accidents. Her feet were cut off at the ankles, while the other passengers hit the ground, sustaining a few injuries in the process. After this incident, the tower was shut down immediately and dismantled about a year later. The girl, on the other hand, had to have her left leg amputated just below the knee since it was too damaged. Her right foot was reattached, and although she's different today, she's made remarkable progress considering the horror she went through.